We've got another great story to share with you today, an inspiring journey into local government leadership, because that's what we do here on the Halting Winter Podcast. We tell the stories behind the titles, the unique paths into public service, and the moments that shape how these leaders show up, even when the work gets heavy. Every day, local government quietly makes modern life possible, and behind every service is a person doing work that often goes unseen. This is the Halting Winter Podcast, and I'm Seth Winterhalter. Every week, I have the pleasure of sitting down with local government leaders from across the country that remind us where government really lives, locally, doing the work that truly matters. This is the work that builds belonging. Before we hear today's conversation, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Tyler Technologies has been exclusively serving the public sector since 1998, partnering with cities and counties to make their work more manageable, more connected, and more effective. From smarter budgeting to artificial intelligence, Tyler equips local governments with software and solutions that help leaders serve with clarity, efficiency, and impact. You can explore a variety of free resources at tylertech.com/winter. That's tylertech.com/winter. And if today's conversation resonates with you, I want to invite you to check out the Municipal Leadership Development Circle. It's a global community of local government leaders who are committed to growing together, supporting one another, and leading well in the middle of municipal pressure. You can learn more about the MLDC at haltingwinter.com/MLDC. That's haltingwinter.com/MLDC. And now, let's turn to today's conversation. My guest on the podcast today is Katelyn Zeits, County Administrator for Benzie County in the good old state of Michigan, which I was just out at. Katie, welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you. I appreciate you asking me to be here.
Well, I had no choice. Bridget Granston said, "You are amazing," and I had to have you on. And with the power of Bridget, you have to do what Bridget says. And so it was... I'm sure you're going to have a great story. It was so fun to be out in Michigan at the Association of County Administrative Officers just a few weeks ago. And I flew into Traverse City. I know that's a part of your story. Can't wait to unpack that. In fact, I before I flew out, I went back in and just dropped by City Hall and was like, hey, I'll just meet the city manager. I didn't even know who it was. Benjamin, is it Marintetti? I think is, I'm not sure. I probably butchered that. Marintet. And talk to him. What a great guy. He's going to come on the podcast here in a few weeks. So looking forward to sharing his story. But yeah, it's always interesting when you fly in. I had this experience in New York. When I went to New York for the first few times, if you only go to Manhattan, you just think the whole state of New York is cement and skyscrapers. And then I moved there and lived there for a few years. And once you get out of the city, it's just Cowtown and just, rolling hills. Michigan kind of has that same thing. If all you know is Detroit, you have no idea all of the beauty and all of the cool other things that are going on in that state. So it's going to be fun to dive into Benzie County and what's going on there and just the unique place it is. But before we do that, we got to do what we do here on the Halting Winter Podcast. Take us back to the beginning and tell us about you, where you grew up, where you were born, kind of the childhood that shaped you so we can get to know you as a person.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually grew up in Newaygo County. And so I know you had Chris Wren on here not too long ago. That's where I hail from. It's Fremont, Michigan, the home of Gerber baby food. And so I was raised there on a dairy farm. And my parents were always into public service. My mom was a clerk for many, many years. And my parents were always giving back to the community. And so myself and my 8 siblings, there's 9 of us, we almost all of us have dabbled in public service or work in public service. It's kind of what we do as a family. I have a sister who's a chief of police. I have a nephew who's a firefighter. Like I said, my mom was a clerk and so on. So it's kind of what we always wanted to do, all of us. We all give back to our community in some way. And my dad being a farmer, I consider that a public service too. And so he was a farmer for 50 plus years. And so I grew up in Newaygo County in Fremont. And I went to school at Ferris State University where I got a bachelor's degree in political science, actually, with a focus on criminal justice. So originally I was going to be a cop one day, And then my sister became a cop, and I went through a mock police academy, and I realized real quick running was not my style. So I shifted and moved on into public administration. And so I've been working for cities and counties since I graduated with my bachelor's degree. Initially, I was with the city of Newaygo, and I was with them for just over a year before I came to Traverse City, and actually worked with Benjamin Marentat for 10 years at the city of Traverse City. So him and I go way back. And then after 10 years with Traverse City, I came out to Benzie County. It's where I live, actually. So it's kind of like coming home when I came out to Benzie County. And I have been here now just over 5 years with Benzie County. I am only the 5th administrator in history of Benzie County. So for many, many years, Benzie County had the clerk and the treasurer, the board chair would kind of do those administrative duties. And so I'm only the 5th one in Benzie history, and also the first female to ever serve in the role. So it's kind of an exciting thing. And I'm very fortunate that Benzie County took a chance on somebody, that was young in her career. And it's been a blessing to be out here. And I just love Benzie County. It's a great area. It's a small county, but we have a lot of power. And so I'm thankful to be here.
Such a great introduction. What a cool story. I have so many questions. Okay, let's back up to dairy farming. I grew up on a ranch. We actually did replacement. So you get the cows pregnant and then you sell them to all the dairy farmers. So that's what we did. Yeah. And and maybe because we lived out in the middle of nowhere, and a lot of dairy farmers live out in the middle of nowhere because your ranch is, so large. Yeah. What did that look like? Like my dad and his brother were volunteer firefighters. So we did public service. They were very involved in church and in the community, but we really I had no awareness of local government except for fire, because the town the town still to this day is like 100 people. So what did that look? I mean, for your mom to be a city clerk, that's really unique, but also like the time and demand, people have no idea when you are on a farm, even if, my dad was a real estate agent, he was multiple things. And so the farm was kind of this hobby, but it was so large still that it's not a hobby. It was like the main thing. You just couldn't make any money, after the dairy farm crash in Washington, at least in the 80s. And so what is that? How did your parents have time for anything else besides the life of farming?
Yeah. My parents were both born and raised dairy farmers as well. So it's like what they knew, it was in their blood. And so my dad milked the cows, and, we had a small organic dairy farm for many years. My mom always did the books. And then my mom served the township for years. She started out as an election inspector, helping out with those elections. And then she moved her way into that clerk role. My parents never slept, I'm pretty sure, looking back on it. But, they were always there for us. There was 9 of us kids. And if my mom wasn't there, I had a sister there too. And so it was really neat to be part of this family of 11. And, we're all full brothers and sisters, no twins even. So there's 21 years of kids in there. And we were just it was always a team effort, right? And so if my mom or dad couldn't do something on the farm, one of us picked up the slack and vice versa. We were always helping our parents out. My dad, also served on the National Farmers Organization and those larger organizations as well. And also with the church, right? My dad is 84 and he'll still show a complete stranger his messed up thumb that he hit with a hammer when he was helping to build the church in our town. And so it's always a fun story. But I think we just have this big family, and we're always really to just help each other out. And so we never fell short because we always had somebody else to kind of pick us up where we were having a little slack. And so we just made it work. All nine of us kids and our parents. And we never went on vacation ever. That's right. A farmer doesn't go on vacation. It wasn't until like later in high school, I went with friends on my first spring break. But looking back, I wouldn't change it. Even though I didn't get to go to all the cool states and all the cool theme parks, there's a lot of just glory in being on the farm with my family.
I think, I resonate with a lot of what you just said there. And I just don't think you can learn work ethic. Not that you can't learn it, but a farm gives you because you're not only learning work ethic because there's so much to do all the time. But it's in light of something living. Like you have to take care of those cows or those horses or whatever it is, because if you don't like that, they're not going to make it. Like if you don't milk a cow, it's over. We used to have flooding down in the valley where we lived. And I remember good friends of ours had their dairy farm, and they were so worried that they couldn't get to the cows to milk them, which, they're like going to explode. So it's just like, it's crazy when you think about horticulture and and animal, that life of it kind of teaches you a different kind of service than just working a job, delivering a paper that maybe where you don't connect the dots of necessity. And so that work ethic, and yeah, like I remember my childhood memory is every morning, whether it's weekend or weekday, it didn't matter. The window in our bedroom, my brother and I, would be flown open at the crack of dawn, and that freezing cold morning air would hit you, and it was time to get up. There was no sleeping in on the ranch. What number were you in that football team of kids?
I'm number 9, actually. I'm the baby of the family, but the window was still open and the yelling still came up the staircase every morning to get out there and take care of your chores. Cause we all had, we had horses too. So now in addition to the dairy cows, and we had, everything from young calves up to older stock, we also all had horses. And so one of us was always outside doing a chore. And I remember thinking, gosh, I hated that as a kid, working all the time, but it taught me a lot. And now here I am, the mom of 3 boys. And every morning I'm yelling up the stairs, get outside and feed your animals, because I also still have cows and horses and rabbits and I'm doing the same thing. So, it's good for kids to have those responsibilities. And so I'm carrying it out with my kids, and hopefully someday they're super successful and super dedicated, like I am.
I love it. I love it. And so, yeah, so you're the baby of the family. So you're getting to see all these siblings kind of go off and do their thing. Obviously, that seemed to be an influence with you, at least seeing your sister go into police, and you kind of going, hey, maybe that's what I'll do. Well, before we even get to that, what was it like? You say your mom was a clerk, and so you have an idea of, when you're, even though you're a kid, so you don't know everything, but you have an awareness then here's this job, here's local government. What did that, obviously as a different age, we talk a lot about on the podcast when we talk about current challenges, just the incivility and the just like lack of awareness, both lack of awareness and appreciation, I think, for local gov. And local gov, that's why this podcast exists. Local gov, I think, is radically different than your state, than your federal. They all have a purpose, but man, without local gov, we can shut down the state and the federal, and you have to have local gov. Like, you have to have your water. You have to have these services that make your modern life possible, because the reality is, in modern life, we don't know how to go backwards. Can you imagine how many people, like, what are you going to do if you don't have water? You figure it out. Now, maybe the dairy farmers will go figure it out, because that's kind of their MO, but I'm telling you, no one in an urban, suburban environment is going to go just figure out all that the city does. Like, and so these things, and so how do we, just the appreciation, the awareness, what did that look like, having a mom that was a city clerk? And sometimes the city clerks, I'm sure, could take some drama, some elections, and, everyone's kind of looking for a finger to point. It seems it's got to point to a person, not just a process. Anything like, how did that shape you and mold you as far as what you thought about local gov, or what your eyesight was toward it?
Yeah. So, my mom helping out with the clerk and serving as a clerk for many years, I knew a lot about elections, right? That's usually the focus of township clerks specifically. And so I knew a lot about elections. We talked about those things at a very early age. And I understood at an early age that it does make it happen at the local level. Yes, there's state and there's federal, but really where the magic happens for our communities is at the local level. And so I got to see those things from a young age. You can serve as an election inspector when you're 16 years old. You don't have to be registered to vote yet in Michigan, but you can serve as an election inspector. So I got to see that firsthand look of what it looked like to process a ballot, what it looked like when those ballots came in and you were putting them in an absentee envelope, and what those requests look like. And I got to see those things and understand that process at an early age, that I knew that it mattered that I voted in elections, because my voice was part of the overall impact. And then the other things too is, and when it came to being the clerk, she was the record keeper of the township. So my mom had a huge array of organizational, just like cabinets and boxes, of everything that just went. So, and I learned about the record retention and how you can't get rid of certain documents because they're the history, and the clerk was that record keeper. And so our mom really made us part of that process, right? If we had a question, it didn't matter the question. She took the minute to answer the question, because she wanted us to understand that the local level is where your community functions at. And so our mom always was just telling us about these different things. but she also was such a believer in giving back to the community and trying to be part of that overall, making the community better. And so she encouraged us to get involved at all different levels of service because she knew that that's what makes the community go around. And so we helped out with different things all the time, from anything from school functions to township functions to other things, because she wanted us to understand that we mattered in the overall impact to the community. And so we were always doing that at all ages, just constant, let's do this, let's be involved in this. And it was great.
I think city clerks, county clerks are just amazing. The clerk, like you just said, it is not, we can kind of think, even those in local gov can think, it's just kind of the secretary, it's just kind of the people that do all this paperwork. That history component, I love that because I'm such a history nerd. But I think that someone in the organization is the keeper of that, is the holder of that. And sometimes that can only be I think people can think of it maybe they can think about the negatives. Like, we can't do that because it's been this way forever or whatever. But they hold so many positive things too. Like, to think, how can we use that? How can we remember? I think that's the cool thing about local gov too, is we're talking about places, and those places are representative of the people that have lived there. And what unique things have they done? I think about what's his name? Michael Hart in Colorado, La Junta. They all of a sudden were like, we've always been kind of known for these tarantulas. So then now they have a tarantula festival. They're just like leaning full bore into it, which grosses me out. I'm like, oh,
yes,
pass. But like, hey, you do you, boo, right? Like, I think it's just cool that like you have a history, and it's cool that there's a position. So someone might be listening and go, man, I was going to go to school for history. What would I do with that degree? Do you know that you could be a clerk and be the holder of that? I mean, the steward of the memory and the things that not only can hold its past, but move it forward. Like, that's why I love like young people going, oh, there is a place for a history degree besides just a history teacher. There are cool places, I think, that you can find a place in local gov. Speaking of that, like, again, you're going to go to Ferris State University, you're going to get an undergrad in poli-sci, criminal justice concentration. What was it that out of all, I'm sure that maybe siblings or all that you've kind of seen, what was it about police that kind of drew you there? And then I want to get to, I just love encouraging young people to not only local gov, but also just to the journey of their life. And I think sometimes young people think, once I make a decision, I just remember when I was young, everyone asked you, what are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do? And there was so much pressure to be like, man, I can't mess this up. And as soon as I say something, I've got to stick with this forever, even if I hate it. Right. And it's like, you don't. That's why I want to get to your, like, you had an experience and an awareness and said, not today. Like, we got to find something else. But what led you to that? What kind of turned you on to criminal justice and started that path?
Yeah. So number 6 is who's the police chief, my sister, Georgia, and her and I have been really close. And so I saw, what she was doing in police work. She was, the first female chief of Newaygo County. And she did all these really exceptional things and made a lot of good change. And, me being the baby sister, I wanted to be just like my sister. And so I, was following in those footsteps to be a lot just like my big sister. And I had some great professors. And I really learned, though, that I was not meant to be a police officer. I have a lot of respect for them. My sister runs an amazing department and her staff are amazing people. But working with that side of the public day in and day out, I just knew wasn't for me. I wanted something different. And so I switched and went over to actually clerk world. And I kind of then shifted to do clerk world with my mom. And that's where I met Benjamin Marentet. And him and I worked together in the city clerk's office for Traverse City for 10 years. And I did clerk world, and it was great and it was fun. Elections were really cool to be part of, being part of that big overall change of a community when the city council is voted to be different people. And that was really great. But I knew I wanted something more, and I wanted to be part of something bigger. And that's when I came out to Benzie County, was to be part of that overall just big community picture. And so that's when I made that shift out here to do that specifically. But when you talk about young people, that's my passion. Kids are not taught about local government enough. They really are not. My kids are little and they know all about it because I'm constantly talking about it and I'm keeping them involved. And I work closely with our elementary school here in Benzie County to start talking about local government more to these younger kids. Because when they do ask those high schoolers, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's always a doctor. It's always a police officer. It's always an air pilot, but they never say, oh, I want to be the clerk or I want to be the county administrator. And they just don't see those as career paths because they're kind of things that a lot of us fell into. And so it is my mission as the county administrator to start teaching these kids at a young age the importance of local government. And I tell these kids, this is where the magic happens in your community. The elementary students have field trips here at the government center now. They all get to sit on the judge's bench and they get to see all the police and the ambulance. And, I'm getting them excited about giving back to their community at a young age, because that's where it starts. It's not 8th grade. It's not 10th grade. It's 2nd and 3rd grade when there's that big impact in their life that really sets that trajectory of what kind of service they want to provide to their community. And so we start at a young age, and I'm always working with those schools because I believe it's so important to just work through the whole curriculum with these kids to help them understand that not only do you come to Benzie County, come to the government center for a birth certificate and a marriage license, but you can also serve the community in a bigger way when it comes to register of deeds and taxes and courts and those sorts of things. So that's a passion of mine, is getting these kids more involved in local government.
May is National Cities, Towns, and Villages Month, which means it's a great time to recognize the people doing the amazing work that keeps our communities running. The work most people rarely see, and if we're honest, hardly ever fully appreciate. It's the work that doesn't slow down, and yet it's the work that's expected to be done day in and day out. Right now, that work is getting a little bit easier. Across local government, teams are finding small but meaningful ways to operate more efficiently, not by replacing people, but by removing the kind of work that pulls them away from what matters most. Things like drafting routine responses, sorting through data, managing workflows that used to take far more time than they should. This is where AI is starting to make a real impact, and Tyler Technologies is helping local governments do exactly that with tools designed specifically for your world, practical, secure, and built to support your team without adding complexity. Tyler has put together a free ebook on AI and efficiency in local government, along with additional resources to help you explore what this could look like in your organization. Find them all at tylertech.com/winter to help you keep doing the work that matters most. That's tylertech.com/winter. Now, back to the conversation. I love that. It's so true, and it's so cool, that idea, like you say, a young person thinks about being a doctor, an astronaut, a fire police person, but those fire police, again, my dad was a volunteer firefighter forever, and then even was a commissioner. I had no idea that really was connected to local gov, and yet right. The cool opportunity. I have this kind of dream of going out and going to high schools basically, and doing kind of this. I used to be an orchestra conductor, and so I thought of doing kind of an assembly where you say, "Hey, you're all familiar with an orchestra and these different sections and different sounds." Think of local gov that way. Like, you probably know the brass section, fire and police, but do you know that local gov, they're a part of local gov, and the local gov, they need public works to have the streets for those trucks to get to the calls. And then they need judges to be able to handle the things that happen in those police. Like, there's all these cool connections that you can help people go, oh, this is a much bigger tapestry. I just saw the fancy corner, image, and I didn't know there was all this connectivity to make it so cool. And it's so cool. I love that. I love that starting at a young age and getting people to City Hall, to the county, spaces and places. I think that's important. And how do we get them there, and how do we get them interacted? Part of the other thing, and you kind of, I want to get to your student internship, because I think that's kind of this thing. How do we get young people, especially when they maybe start looking for a job? Like, there's so many jobs in parks and the swim and umpiring, like mowing lawns. There's all kinds of things they can actually do. That on this podcast, we've had guests who did those things and didn't even know they were working for the city. Like, they're like, what am I? What? I thought it was just some parks thing. So it's just kind of fascinating that I think sometimes we assume, right? It's kind of the problem of leadership. We make a lot of assumptions and just assume everyone knows, and they don't. Tell us about that student internship. Again, this is for the city, not the county of Newaygo, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in your
city of Newaygo. Yep.
And so you're doing your undergrad, and how did you put that together? Was that a requirement for that program? Tell us about that.
So a part of the requirement for the political science program at Fair State was you had an an internship. And so I knew I wanted to be in local government because that was where I, saw myself going. And so I went back home and I was able to get the internship with the city of Newaygo, which is actually where my sister is the chief of police. She wasn't at the time, she was the sergeant at the time, but that made that connection. And as you know, many of us know, a lot of it's about the relationships that you've built along the way. And so I was able to make those connections with the city manager at the time, and they were able to create an internship for me to really work in all the departments of the city of Newaygo. So while I was in Newaygo, I did clerk, treasurer, utility billing, city manager. I helped out in the police office, the police department. I kind of got to touch all of the facets. And the cool thing about the city of Newaygo too is the chamber was really kind of part of the city too, because they were so small. So I also got to touch part of that economic development and chamber side of things. So it was a great internship because at that small community, I got to have my fingers in kind of all the things and really learn what each department does so I could really decide which direction that I wanted to go. And so really it was that connection. They didn't have interns before me, and I'm not sure how many they've had since me. But it was one of those, I made that relationship. I, explained to them what I was after, and they were able to create that internship for me so that I could learn all about what a small city does like Newaygo. When I was in Newaygo, I think they only had about 1,300 people in the city of Newaygo. So it was a very small town, but very touristy. There's a lot of folks who come to the city of Newaygo because of Muskegon River. So I got to be involved in a lot of cool events like summer programs that they had with community events. And I also went as far as working for the DPW. I mowed lawns at the cemetery and I painted curbs. I did it all. So I knew exactly what it meant to work for a city.
Yeah. Oh, it's so cool. And so you graduate, you've done this internship. You even, I think, work part-time as an administrative assistant there for the city. And then you end up over in Traverse City as the administrative specialist for a few years. You become the deputy city clerk there. Tell us about this, because Traverse, it was, flying in. I'd never been to Traverse City. It's kind of unique. It's right on the water, but they kind of have this big jetty that I don't know if it's a jetty or what you call that, the little, island that kind of goes out, but it's kind of a unique space up there. I was really surprised at the size of the city. I think now it's like 15,000 people. Tell us a little bit about the city and about what you, again, you've kind of now left police world, you're going into clerk world, you're following your mom's kind of footsteps. What was it like now to work for a city full time and kind of in these positions?
Yeah, so it was scary. Not going to lie about that. I lived in small town Fremont, right? It was a very small town, very rural. Traverse City was the big city that I'd only been to a couple of times. But the city of Newaygo, I was part-time at that time, and I knew I needed full-time, and I wanted to really, start my career. And so I was looking all around at different municipalities in Michigan, and Traverse City popped up. And I actually found it on the day the closing was happening for that job posting. So I applied that day, and they called me the next day. Benjamin Maritek called me the next day, and I went up there that following week for an interview, and he hired me that day. It was all a whirlwind. And so it was wonderful. I came up here and I was able to stay with a friend for quite some time until I could get an apartment. And I just started working in this big city, what felt like a big city to me, and just learning all the facets of what it meant to be in the clerk's office. But the cool thing about it is I also got to make a big impact in the clerk's office. When I came into the clerk's office, then they were still using typewriters and they were still using microfilm and some of these technologies that was what we always used. And when I came into the Traverse City clerk's office, I was able to say, hey, but can we try it this way? And so they gave me an opportunity to really take my skills to make some of those changes, to create labels versus using a typewriter and just simple things like that really improved the efficiency of the clerk's office. And so I worked in the clerk's office the entire time with Benjamin Maritek and some other staff. He was also there. And then I made myself the deputy clerk. And during that role, I really served primarily on elections. I also did other administrative duties too. I did a lot with elections in that deputy role, as well as serving the city commission too. Traverse City has actually just over 17,000 people now. It feels like a really big city, but it really is still such a small town. And there's a lot of small town character. And there is the peninsula. So there's the Leelanau Peninsula and the Old Mission Peninsula. Very touristy. Folks come to Traverse City for the food, for the wine, for the views. It's a great city to be part of. It was it felt good to be a young person coming to a city where everyone just really embraced you, embraced your ideas, and really wanted you to just be part of their city. And so it was really cool to spend my early 20s in a city where it felt like home immediately because everyone in the community was so welcoming and there was just a lot of fun things to do. It's a family community, and every weekend there's something you can do with your family in and around Traverse City, which makes it so special.
It was so cool driving in. I was looking for a watch shop. I'm addicted to watches. And I thought I knew that this store had the Shinola watch brand, which is a Detroit, which has this cool story. They used to be, I think we all probably familiar with Shinola, the shoe shine company it was, and then they've redone it and done all these cool things with it. Anyway, so I was looking for this place, and I'm driving along that whatever the road is that's right next to the water, and you're just kind of like, wow, yeah, I'm like, that is like a sea out there. It's just people don't understand like Lake Michigan. It's Lake Michigan, right? Is that what that is out there?
Yep.
It's just so ginormous. It's just, I live right by the Pacific Ocean. And I'm just like the same. It's just so big, but it's gorgeous. Like you said, that park and all that, and people were running out there, and I'm like, I just love that. Oh, so cool. And so, is you're there, when is it, when you go to Benzie County, now I have in my records that you started as the HR finance director, which you do that for like a hot second. Did you know you were going to become the county administrator? Was that just like a get acquainted with us for a moment? When in your journey, did you go, man, I think I want something more? And why wasn't it city management? Why was it county administration?
Yeah. So I think I said really early on at Traverse City, I joked with the city manager at the time and the assistant city manager, like, I'm going to take your job someday. I always said that. And so the great thing about the clerk's office is I got to do so much more than just clerk. And I dealt with finances and insurance coverages and those different things. So it really gave me a really broad perspective. During all that time too, I obtained my Michigan Treasury certification, my Master Citizen Planner, as well as my International Clerk certification. So I kind of got to learn all the things. I think it takes a well-rounded person to do the administrative job successfully because you kind of need to know where everyone else is coming from. And so I took my time to dabble into all of those things while working on my master's degree. And so I'd been with Traverse City for 10 years. And when I came into Traverse City, there was a lot of change happening. There's a lot of retirements and folks coming in. And so it was really at a time when if I was going to grow within Traverse City, it was going to be many years from that time because of where everyone was at in their career paths, where people were coming and going and leaving and staying. And so I knew that if I wanted to continue to grow, I couldn't be in Traverse City at that very moment of time because of where things were shaking out at. So that's when I started looking elsewhere. We had also moved to Benzie County, my husband and I and the kids. And so I'd already been out here and just learning the landscape and learning that it was such a cool community. And so the job for HR finance opened up. And so I applied for that job because I'd already been doing finance and some HR things at Traverse City, and I knew I wanted to do more. So the HR finance job opened up, and about, 2 to 3 weeks into being out here in Benzie County, the administrator at the time was like, I'm retiring. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I just got here. He's like, yeah, I'm retired. You should apply for the job. And I was like, I just got here. Like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, just consider it. I'm like, all right, cool. So I considered it, talked it over with my family. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to apply for the job. Why not? It's the end goal anyways. Maybe we're just getting there faster than, I should be. So I applied for the job. They put me through the whole process, just like everybody else. They didn't just give it to me. I had to go through all the public interviews and do all these presentations on ARPA and other things. And at the end of the day, they picked me, and it was a whirlwind. Benzie County is such a cool place that retirees came back to help me get my office established because at that point, now I'm the only one in the office because the administrator's retired. I was HR, and now I'm in the administrator. And so a couple of retirees came back and helped out for a couple of months while we got the office established. And we just built this really cool team. And I got to create my own team, which was really awesome. And just really do good things for Benzie County. When I came here, the board said, there's these top 5 things we want you to do. And it's like, all right, I got this. And the number one thing was we need to fix the organizational culture of Benzie County. And that is something that I've been doing ever since. And I will say, a lot of people love to work here because they love the cool things that we're doing. We're a team, we're like a big family. And it's been really rewarding to be part of such a group of people that just everybody has each other's back. And that I don't think you could ask for anything more in a career than to have a team of people who just are there for you.
It's so good. Okay, I want to go back. There's so much I want to get to with Benzie, but I want to go back as you mentioned something about while you're in Travers, you're getting all these kind of certifications, and you're doing these educational things that I think is so unique in local gov because you can come. It's not one of those things where, well, my undergrad is in X, and so I can only be in X. Like you can, once you get into local gov, you can kind of move around and morph. Like again, you're clerking, now you're HR and finance directing. Like you can kind of like, there are other ways or educational components, like I think you said planning, like what does that have to do with anything? Right. And so it's kind of like, it's just kind of interesting how you can develop yourself and be developed and experiment and kind of go, hey, do I like this? Do I want this? Like you're not set into any, and that's why I love this podcast. So many different paths into city and county management. And I think it's encouraging to be like, hey, it doesn't matter where you're at in the org chart. There's a way there. I think it's just about leadership. And like you said, it's really the job, leadership development. Maybe just a hot minute, those kind of things that you did, those educational component certifications, was that more pressed on you, kind of voluntold to do these things, or was that you? Like, how can we encourage maybe someone who's in local gov to go, hey, how did you find those things? How did you look for those opportunities to continue be developed?
So they were not pressed upon me. I actually made the request to Traverse City to do the planner and the treasury. Clerk obviously was kind of the one that they wanted me to do because I was in the clerk's office and they were willing to pay for those things. But a lot of communities are willing to invest in their staff in general. And Traverse City was willing to invest in me to get the treasury certification and other certifications. And so those were things that I knew I wanted to explore. I knew management and administration was really where I wanted to be. And I believe that to be an effective administrator, you really need to know what your team is doing. And what better way to know what my team is doing than to understand those basic elements of what makes their office go round. And so I know in a city and a county, there's planning and there's the clerk and there's the treasurer and there's all these different things. And so I wanted to make sure that I was going to be a good and effective leader and at least know the basics of the different departments so that I could have a good conversation with them and I could help them explore new ideas and give them suggestions and not just be shooting from left field, because I went through some of those classes and tried to understand the importance of their role. I think one thing that's really important for leaders is for their staff to know how much you appreciate them and how important you know that their role is. And what better way for me as a leader to understand the importance of their role by at least dabbling in it and understanding the basics of what makes their department go round.
What you just said is so brilliant, and what an encouragement to some people who maybe they want to be an administrative, officer, but they're like you in kind of Traverse City. They're like, well, where? There's no opening, there's no possibility, and so they're just kind of waiting. Maybe it's like while you're waiting, you can do some things. I think that's a brilliant thing to say. It's the temptation of an executive where they think there's either two things: either A, you don't know enough, and so you're just blindly trusting everyone to know because you kind of came out, sometimes I'll have this, people that come out of like police, so like all they know is the police world. And so it's like, well, I'm just going to trust that everyone else knows, when they become a city manager. If you can, but the best leaders have an awareness, but they don't get into the weeds. They don't have to be the best at everything. You don't have to be the most skilled and most knowledgeable. That can actually hinder your leadership when you're an executive. But having an awareness of it, again, like you said, to give an appreciation for what those people bring to the table, what they're actually doing, some of the complications, having an idea of even the time, like how much time does it take to do some of these things? Oh man, I'm putting a lot on these people, for this project or what that is. Really, real brilliant and again, it's not like those are like 3-year programs, right? A lot of those can be short-term kind of classes. And so you can be developing yourself now for the path forward. I love that.
And there's so many opportunities out there and so many municipalities are ready and willing to invest into their staff. And so for anyone who's young in their career, ask the question, ask if you can do these things, because so many municipalities want to invest in their staff. I think it's just that barrier of communication of, well, I don't want to put too much on this person. And they're like, well, they probably won't pay for it anyways. Just ask the question, because most local governments want to invest in you as an employee.
Yeah, so good, so good. So you, I love this. You get to Benzie, and in a hot second, you go from what you think you're doing now to the county administrator. Tell us about that, because it is such a unique reality to go to either a county administrator or a city manager. That position is so unique because you become kind of the, what I say, I call it the kind of it's the municipal tightrope. Like, you're on this tightrope of tension already because it's this political environment, but you become kind of the lightning bolt. Now you are the face for residents to come to. You are the face for all the county employees. You're the face of those electeds, right? You're the professional now, and so you got to keep all these things balanced, on track. And county is unique too, because there are so many other elected positions. Like, at least a city manager only has to put up with the elected council. I can't imagine if they had to elect every one of their department heads too. Right? It's just county. You guys are in a different world. What was it like to be that first year or two? And you're coming out of COVID too, just for the sake of the national audience and timeline here. So things like, I'm sure that had an impact. And so, like you said, resetting culture, values. What did that look like that in that first year in the seat, in that new position?
Well, it was a whirlwind, for lack of better words. The thing that I think helped me is I really love creating relationships with people. And especially in counties, when you have this co-employer relationship, as the administrator, who's the representative of the Board of Commissioners, I'm the co-employer to the Sheriff's Department and to the clerk's office. We share those employees for various reasons. And so it's really about creating those relationships with those elected officials so that you understand both perspectives, my perspective and theirs, and where we're coming from, and how do we come to a common ground. I approach it, though, that we're all on one team. In some counties, things are very, just separate, right? They're the sheriff and I'm the administrator, and we do things, separately. Here, I see it as one team. Yes, the sheriff gets to make the decision on the operations of his department, and the Board of Commissioners and myself simply hold the purse strings. That's absolutely true. But we don't approach it that way. We're all on the same team. We all want what's best for Benzie County. And so that's not between us, right? We know it's there. We know that we're all co-employers, but we have such a relationship in Benzie County between myself and the elected officials that that's not part of the conversation. We're just here to do what's best for our community. And so that's all about starting those relationships. And so in that first year, really what I focused on is those relationships with the elected officials and with the staff. When I started in Benzie County, I had over a dozen staff who came to the administration office to meet me. And I called them into my office to say hello and have a 5-minute conversation. I had over a dozen staff say, we've never been in this office because we were scared to come here. That's a problem. And so that was my goal in the first year, is to just break down those barriers. Who cares if I'm in the corner office? We are all doing what's best for Benzie County. We all have a part in what's making Benzie County the best place. There's no reason for that kind of just weirdness. And so that whole first year was about building relationships and building those connections between the elected officials and between the staff so that everyone could be on that level. We're all here doing this together playing field, and not have this ups and downs of, relationships that were there that I inherited.
It's so important, like you say, just that it's one thing to have an open door policy. It's another to really build relationship and bring people in. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where in local gov, it's one of the issues I think I see in local gov is this is one of the most missional, purpose-filled careers people can have, because everything they do is impacting real people, and not just real people like Amazon sending books to people, miles and states away. Your work is impacting the very people you call your neighbors, the very people whose businesses are there, whose lives are there, who play there. I mean, it's just such an impactful work. But if they don't feel appreciated in that work, like you say, It can just be, I just show up and do what I'm told, I guess, and kind of the bare minimum. And how can we change that? Well, we change that by leaders like you. And so just thank you for, I think I just love that. I love that you're building a relationship, you're helping people see worth, you're inviting them into that. I love that whole philosophy you're saying, like, we're in this together. And I think that's one of the things in working with counties across America. You can tell kind of the normal path of operations is we're very siloed. We fight for kind of our department thing instead of going, no, like we've got to. And I wonder if it seems like maybe there's a change because budgets are tight, because like resources are tight. Like you just can't fight by yourself anymore. You really have to be a part of team. You have to be a part of, that's the beautiful thing of a department going, hey, we'd like to do this, but we don't need to do this. You need to do this because like this makes Benzie better, or we can't, lack that kind of significance of service or whatever that looks like. That kind of partnership is powerful.
100%. I mean, it's one Benzie County, and that's our motto. It's one Benzie County, and we're all in this together, and we can't go at it alone, especially Benzie County being so small. We're the geographically smallest county in Michigan. Over 30% of our property is in a non-taxable state because it's owned by the feds or it's owned by the state of Michigan. So we have limited resources compared to our neighbors. And so we'd be silly to think that we could go at it alone. We depend heavily on relationships and partnerships to make Benzie County the great place that it is. And if we don't use that thought process moving forward to make Benzie County even better, we're not going to be successful because we don't have the resources to do it alone.
After more than 325 episodes with local government leaders and thousands of conversations on stages and workshops across North America, there is one pattern I keep seeing regardless of the size, the structure, or even the budget of the organization. The people who are the most technically skilled are often the ones we are promoting into leadership. But then we expect those technical skills to translate. But let's be honest, leading people is a completely different job, a completely different reality. It's like learning a foreign language. When that gap isn't addressed, it shows up everywhere. In communication and accountability, in the very cultures we are trying to create, build, and sustain. And it shows up in the weight those new leaders now have to carry every day. That's exactly why I created the Municipal Leadership Development Circle, or for short, what we call the MLDC. It was built specifically for local government leaders who were promoted for their skills, but never fully prepared to lead people. If you are feeling that gap, or if you're seeing it on your team, in a department, now is the time to address it. Learn more and schedule a conversation at HaltingWinter.com/MLDC. That's HaltingWinter.com/MLDC, or simply use the link in the show notes. Now, back to the conversation. Well, and speaking of that, it's perfectly a segue. Benzie County you have one city, Frankfort City. You have 6 villages. You have 12 townships. There's a lot of opportunity there for people just to want to do their own thing. And I find that in more rural America, it's kind of like, we're going to do our own thing. You weirdos can do whatever you're going to do, what we're going to do. And so how have you created, not just in the county with the employees, but with those villages, townships, that city, how do you create let's be in this together. Let's make this broader county space we are in work well. What does that look like?
So it's a lot of people, it's a lot of opinions, and it's a lot of personalities. But it's been fun over the last 5 years to get to know all of these people. I go to their township, village, and city meetings. I'm having conversations with them. I'm finding ways to work together. If I come across an opportunity that doesn't, fit Benzie County, I'm sending it out to the township so they can explore that opportunity, because we have to do that to get things done. One of the things that we've been working on since I came here is broadband expansion. It's been the conversation across the country, bringing internet to folks. When I came to Benzie County, there was over half the county that didn't have broadband connection. During COVID, our school buses were taking paper packets to every home so that those kids could do schoolwork because there was no internet connectivity. And that was a project that we had to get everybody involved. And it was a common goal. It was a common understanding that we needed that connection, not only because of COVID, because we learned really fast that internet really helped us all, but also for our youth and to raise our kids and to keep these kids in Benzie County. We need to help provide those resources. So that was one of those big projects where it was finding that level playing field with the townships too, because those folks also want to do what's best for their individual communities. And then those individual communities coming together to do what's best for Benzie County. And so having those common goals and having those projects that span across all the boundaries, really getting us all around the table about the importance of connectivity. That really brought us all together to learn that really we all are in this for the same good reason. It's to make Benzie County the best county that we can. And so finding those common goals and working together just came naturally as we were focusing on projects like broadband, like housing, like childcare. We all have those same goals to make those things better in Benzie County. And so it just makes those relationships and those conversations that much easier to have. Now, it does take a lot of time, though, because there's a lot of jurisdictions here in Benzie County, but we make it work. They're my neighbors and they all know my family and it just works out.
I think that's one of the things too, and why I love this podcast, just to remember that these leaders are humans, and they're not only humans, they're the people that live with you. They are neighbors. Like, I think that's important to remember that I just remember as a pastor, I was a pastor for a decade, and I just felt like I could never not, that role just never shuts off. Like anytime I leave my house, even when I'm at my house, like it's like you have neighbors, like, people are looking at me not as Seth, they're looking at me as, oh, that's the pastor. And so it's just like, I think I have this connection to local government leaders. I think especially the county administrator, city manager, like you're the face. That's you. That's part of the role, is that when you go to the gym, the grocery store, people can stop you and people can, they know your car, especially, in smaller places where it's not like you live in Dallas, Texas, and you can kind of hide. Like you're pretty known, I'm sure, in Benzie. And so tell us about what do you think is, because you again have worked in cities and now as a county, what's something that a resident, something that just a normal person wouldn't really know that their county provides? I like to shine the spotlight on what's some of the things that the county does that we may take for granted and not even know that that's connected to the county.
So one thing that I've heard from past administrators in my career is counties are the provider of last resort. Most people are not coming to a county office because they want to. Birth certificates, marriage licenses, those are the exceptions. You want to get those documents because it's an exciting time in your life. But a lot of the services that we provide as county are not services that the everyday person are thinking about. The jail, we're not thinking about that. If you're going to court, it's typically not because it's a good reason. If you're paying your taxes at a county, it's not because you're on time. And so those are some of the things that, while they don't necessarily impact everybody, but they do impact the most vulnerable in our community. And that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to have an impact on those most vulnerable and try to just give them one step up, to work with them, to make things better, to help them in a time when they're down. And that's something that counties do that cities perhaps wouldn't. Cities don't typically have those sorts of things. Now, there are some city jails in the world and those sorts of things, but typically cities they're providing those more fun services, right? Or the services that we all think of, water and sewer. Counties as a whole are providing those services. We're providing a jail and we're providing a court system. And those are not things that we're thinking about all the time, but they're the kind of services that we absolutely need to support those most vulnerable populations in our community. And so counties are providing a service that's just so, so important. But I don't think the average person's thinking about those services because they just take those kind of things for granted. Yep, there's a jail. Yep, we have a jail. Well, but sometimes in that jail, that's when those people are having those pivotal moments to get off on the right track. And that's what we're trying to do as a county, is help those people pick up their bootstraps and make that correct path forward that maybe they're not on currently.
It's such a great point. It's like you say, it's the dual reality of helping those who are in those places. But it's also, if you're like, well, but that's never going to be me, so why do I have to pay for it? These people, they drive me off the wall. Well, here's the thing. Can you imagine not having, do you just want anarchy? Do you not want justice? Do you not want the consequences of justice? It's just like, it takes 2 seconds of awareness to really think through. But we just live in a time of such, like a foolish selfishness, I think, when we just we don't think about the layers and connectivity that makes a civilization function, right? And that is where local government serves. It's not only giving you those resources that you take, you turn on the water every day And no one does not turn on water in some facet to wash, to drink, etc. every day. And yet it's just like you just expect it, like I'm entitled for it to be there because I breathe air today, so I deserve it. And yet we don't see the outer structure of, like you say, the justice system and the ability to have your day in court or to take someone who is, hurt you or, and so these services are so vital to a functioning human civilization. And so I think that's the cool thing to go. And we need people. We need talented people, leaders to do that, to care for, because what you're doing at the root of all those services is you're caring about place. And that's the cool thing is what is this place? What is Benzie County? We were out. It was just interesting to see, you've talked, it's kind of this, Benzie is a small county. It's a rural county. And yet you have Crystal Mountain Ski Resort like this, it was where the conference was. And this just like, beautiful, village almost up against this mountain. Tell us about, it's just kind of unique that you have, when you have these unique places that draw people in like this. And you said, I'm sure there's other things in Benzie, the fishing, the hunting, etc. When you're a kind of a tourist place, what does that look like in trying to lead, with the dynamic of people kind of coming in to use service and then, vamonos? What does that look like from county leadership?
So that's one of those things that we're constantly battling with. Folks want to come to Benzie County because of our beautiful natural resources. When you come again, go to the city of Frankfort, go to the Point Betsy Lighthouse. The county owns Point Betsy Lighthouse that is said to be one of the most visited lighthouses in the United States. It's Point Betsy Lighthouse. It's beautiful. And so we have people who flock here to see those different tourist attractions, Sleeping Bear Dunes also. But then we also have the people who are here all the time. In administration, what is that balance? That's what we're constantly looking at is what is that balance for the community that, who's paying for the services that we need? In the summer, we need more police. We need more animal control. We need more ambulances on the road because our population triples. And during those other times, we don't need that. But how do we manage that and find that happy medium of staffing levels, of the cost to the taxpayer versus the tourist, and working through those different things all the time, trying to do what's best for the community year round, but then also trying to meet the needs of those folks who are visiting us, which help our economy to move, to the next level as well. And so it's this balancing act of figuring out those things. One of the things specifically is Central Dispatch. Central Dispatch is funded by a surcharge here in Benzie County and around the state of Michigan. That surcharge is charged on cell phones of the folks who have a registered cell phone in Benzie County. But during the summer months, the busyness of Central Dispatch drastically increases because of the tourists, but the tourists are not supporting the cost to provide that service. So where is that balance for that, for the community residents who are here year round versus the folks that are just listening or just visiting? And how do we strike that balance so that we're being fair and equitable to both sides? And those are kind of the things that we're constantly working through and trying to figure out new ideas and techniques to provide the service in the fair way to both sides of the aisle.
So good. And I love that you brought up that tactical reality, because I think it proves too why you need professionals, why Benzie needs a county administrator and these teams to look at those things, to go, why, how are we functioning? How are we paying the bills? How can we get creative in some of these ways to make sure that, that's not just a burden of residents who, sure, there's some benefit of tourism, but how do we, like you say, when it swells, I talk with, I was just talking with, who's it, Jennifer Calloway in Truckee, California, on the opposite side of South Lake Tahoe, which Joe Irvin, who's been a city manager out there. And yeah, when you're inundated with tourists, it's a different environment because again, everyone still wants those services, and it's not even want, it's like, think about policing. Like, people are out to have a good time and view vacation. They're probably, that's when chaos can kind of happen, and so, yeah, someone's got to make sure that the place is safe and yeah. Oh, local gov, there it is. The ones who have to figure it all out, right? Tell us, as we close, I want to be mindful of your time. As we close, tell us about, because again, I was out there speaking to the, MACAO, what is that? The Michigan Association of County Administrative Officers. It's always a mouthful. Then you have the MML, Michigan Municipal League, I guess, the league. Yep. And then you have the Michigan Municipal Executives. That's kind of the association there. You have all these different associations, these networks. I just love people to, I want to encourage leaders. I think that especially in local government leadership, especially at the top, county administrator, city manager, you're the only one. Like the only way you can go kind of have, shared sympathy with people in your role is to go to like what you just did, at that conference, because it's not like you can go down to a chamber of commerce meeting or a luncheon and hang out with other county administrators in your county. It's you. And so what is it meant to be a part of these associations? How do they help you not only professionally with maybe ideas and strategy, but also just personally? Because that role has a lot. I think that it's a mentally demanding role, but it's also emotionally demanding because what you do is about people and place. How have these associations helped?
The associations they're a huge part of it, and managing your sanity. One, MACO, the Michigan Association of County Administrative Officers, that one's just so special to me as a county administrator because there's only 83 counties in Michigan. And so our group is pretty small when you look at it from an association standpoint. And so many of us have developed such good friendships that we're able to call on each other in the most trying times, and guaranteed almost someone in the group has went through what we're going through at that time. And so we've created this really great network of people that we can just rely on each other for a lot of those things. But then you look at MME and these other associations as well, and they all just have such good resources for us, especially for those who are so young in their career. They're always looking for ways as associations to support those that are young in their career, to create mentorships and internships and other educational opportunities so we don't feel like we're out on an island by ourselves. So even though I'm the only county administrator in Benzie County, it doesn't feel that way because all of those folks that I've developed relationships with, they're just at a quick text or phone call away. And that makes it really helpful for me as a young county administrator. I've only been in the role for 5 years, and yeah, I've learned a lot, but there's still a lot to learn. And so it's nice when I can call upon those folks that I've built such good relationships with. We as county administrators and city managers, we're all looking for more people to join us. And so we're always looking to help and mentor those who are even thinking about going into local government because we want to build our team across the state bigger and better and stronger to the best of our ability. And so the group is always so welcoming and inviting if there's any questions or thoughts or anything like that. It's really like having just a big group of friends. And that's what I appreciate the most about those organizations.
It was such a great vibe. Usually when I come out to keynote, I get up on a stage and do my thing. And it was so fun to be in such an interactive group setting. Like you say, that smaller setting, I've kind of, I used to early in my leadership career, I went to all the big conferences, it's thousands of people and those are fun. But I tended at the latter part of my career just to find like the seminars and the smaller group things where you could really have interaction and really take away something. And it just felt like that there. And not only just great, you could tell like just strong relationships and healthy dialogue and the ability. I think that's the issue too, is when you are a part of these things and you go, can you be vulnerable? Can you kind of, have an opportunity to share, and be heard and be supported? And you guys have that going on there. So it's super cool. I'll close with this. The job is one of those that I often say it never shuts off. It's kind of like pastoring. You're always on. You've got late night meetings, I'm sure, and weekend events. And, it's just, and it's not there's never more than plenty of work to bleed out of a 9 to 5. And so how do you, part of even the keynote I gave, BS or balance is BS. There's no such thing as work-life balance. There's just intention, right? How do you make sure that the things that are important to you, personal relationships, work, how are you living with intention and how are you communicating? What does that look like for you? How does Katie unwind? How does she, is it just going back and feeding the chickens? And what does that look like? How do you restore your soul so that you're able to give to such a demanding work?
Yeah. So I've learned that it's all about the communication to those around you. And you have to set your boundaries with your communication. The first year, I just took all the calls on Sunday night and every other day. And I learned really quickly that was going to destroy me as a person. And so I've set those boundaries with the folks around me. And they know, unless it's an emergency, you're not calling on a Sunday night. And so I've set those boundaries with the folks around me, and they've been respectful of that because I think we all need the boundaries on both sides of the spectrum. And it's just going home and spending time with my chickens and my horses and my cows and my kids. And, we love to camp. We love to ride our horses and, just be outside. And so we spend a lot of time just as a family, just, being in the moment. I don't take my phone and then I regret it later because I didn't get any pictures of my kids doing something cool. But, being in the moment is so much more important than those photos. And so I put the phone away and we're just in the moment with our kids doing the fun things that kids want to do between riding horses and hiking through the woods and those sorts of things. So set the boundary, keep the boundary, and just do the things for you. That's what's most important.
It's so good. And just to echo what you said there, like there were no boundaries. It was unhealth. And I think that's part of the thing. If you're a leader listening, look at what is unhealthy and then set some boundaries, have some conversations and set some boundaries. Like it's like, oh, well, we kind of make these excuses. Oh, the habit's already been set. We're already, and I can't, now what do? You have a conversation and set some new boundaries. And I think that's part of leadership, and you did it. And like you say too, I think, just being present and being aware of, in this digital age we live in. I have so many. I was in fact scrolling on photos the other day while I was on the plane, and I was just going, gosh, I've never looked at these photos in forever. And like, we used to, as kids, I remember you'd have the photo album, and you'd go and you'd find it on the shelf. We have a billion photos now, and we probably never will look at them, in light of, how we used to. And so, we can get so concerned with capturing it that we forget to actually be in it and live it. Such a good, so many good things. We'll have to have you on again. I want to start a midweek kind of roundtable where we talk about some cool things and ideas. Those things like you shared. How do we get into the schools? What are some cool ideas we can do to both get in and then to bring them in and just get people excited about what's going on in their local gov? Because it is so cool. I think it's not just important. It's cool. Local gov's cool. We got to make local gov cool again. And so I'm on a mission. So I would love to hear more of your thoughts. And even that, and even if you're listening and you're like, man, maybe we're going through a culture change and we're trying to figure out, we got a lot of people maybe afraid of the corner office. Again, reach out to Katie. I'm sure that's one thing I love about you municipal leaders. You're always willing to share. It's not like trade secrets. It's like, how can we make each other better? And so reach out to Katie. I'm sure she has some further gems there about how to do that work of building relationships and resetting culture. It's so cool. Glad you're in that role. Glad you're doing that work. Such a great story and great insights you shared today, Katie. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on here. It was fun.
My pleasure. The stories we share here on the Halting Winter Podcast remind us where government really lives, locally, right here in our cities, our counties, the communities that shape our everyday life. If today's conversation resonated with you, please subscribe and share the episode to help these stories reach others. I'm Seth Winterhalter. You can find me at HaltingWinter.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.